Make sure to pass on to Elisa that we clapped even though she wasn't here. Because, that positivity is always necessary, especially in the academy. Wonderful. So next up, we have Ignacio Evans.
Yeah, I'm not fancy with the whole presentation, but shout out to that, our colleague in a lot of ways, because I think she set the tone for the kind of conversation I want to have. My paper is about niggas and impossibility. The Karen Keeling text for me was one of the ones that sent me on a journey to think about impossibility. Like today, getting here was almost damn near impossible. From losing my wallet last night to having, a black neighbor from upstairs basically be like, I found it with everything intact. I'm just like, oh my God. From my ID to everything else. And the reason why that is kind of critical, because I think it sets the tone for just the condition of black life that my paper and my work begins to talk about. My work is concerned with how black parents who are niggas, they don't get to have kids, right? They don't get to be parents, right? Black parents, they get to, at best, possess misdemeanor homicides, right? And this is not to be like, oh, I'm trying to make folks sad or suggest anything, but I'm really trying to hearken at that black life, oftentimes, when confronting with parenting, don't get to possess the child, right? Parenting usually is a question of, well, that's my kid. And you get to have authority based on, your relationship to that same child. You give it your last name, you give it, the same kind of mannerisms you have. You teach it the life lessons that you hope to have gained when you was younger. These are the things that you're stepping into, right? For black parents, oftentimes those emotions of possibility, right? Can I make my child possible in this anti-black world? How do I make my child possible in this anti-black world, right? Considering that black life is threatened with a genocidal effect, right? When we have that as the contention for what black life is, and what I mean by genocide, I mean like the choices, right? Do you let your child be a part of criminal activity, quote unquote, or do you tell your black child that they're bad? Do you tell your little nigga child that they're bad before that happens, and then try to autocorrect what that bad is, right? For little black girls in particular, they get hit with, feminine youth, right? Black feminine youth, because we're not going to just belabor it to little black girls, but feminine youth, they get hit with, you're fast, especially when there's a discussion about sex. Right, and black parents, in a lot of ways, I know mine did, right, has this notion about, she quotes Marvin Gaye's father, right, I brought you into this world and I'll take you out. Right? A part of that is the contention about you're not going to act a particular way that is one that's going to bring your death quicker than anyone else. And if someone else is going to kill you, it will be me first and not the state. It'll be me first as opposed to the niggas in the street, my mother used to say. Right, and that is then the backdrop / the kind of crux in which we all, as black folks, have to contend with. How do we rear children? How do we then make parenting possible? Well, for me, my paper looks at how Bebe's Kids at the 1992 movie looks at this black woman who's a single parent, how she's depicted in a lot of ways. Right, as a bad black mother, right? She's a bad black mother because she neglects her kids. She's a bad black mother because when they open up the refrigerator, the pun on the joke is that there's a fly that flew out. Bad black mom. And never available the entire movie. Right, that's how bad she is. But if a bad black mom is so bad, then how does she make her kids be able to go to, some amusement park? If this mom is so bad, then how does she got a good friend that is willing to take her off day and her date space to take someone else's kids to go out and have a great time as little black kids, having joy in an amusement park? If she's so bad, It means that in a lot of ways, and this is juxtaposed to the common theme of parenting, which is gentle parenting. People oftentimes belabor gentle parenting as a solution to black parenting. Right? Gentle parenting will help you parent better if you're black, right? Because you're dealing with all of these other things, right? I looked it up. I was like, wow, how many books about black parenting either suggest gentle parenting or are hearkening to some of the themes, in every last one of them that you can Google right now. Every last one of them. They're attempting to auto-correct in a lot of ways how black parenting works, right? What are the conditions in which we parent under? If you just educate your kids, they'll do better. That's a scoff, right? Malefi Asante and his sons are great examples. One becomes a PhD and works at Morgan State University, and the other one goes to jail. Is the one in jail less of a son because he didn't gain a PhD? Even though Daddy talks about things that we can change our black lives with. Do that make Daddy a more hypocrite for not being able to save his son with the theory that he says that saves black people? Right? These are the things that we're faced with when our black parents are educators. Right? These are the things that we're faced with when our black parents are educated on multiple levels. It's not just schooling, your first teacher, how to tie your shoes, but usually how sex works. What is the cost of being black in America? And then how to navigate that depending on what your skin look like. Right? These are things that other kinds of parenting don't really have to think about. Right? Even when other parents adopt black kids, they're not thinking about these things because they don't know to think about these things. My paper is getting at the respectability politics that is surrounding the possibilities and the impossibility of black parenting. Right? It is impossible to be a black parent, not because we don't want to, not because we don't love our kids, not because we don't try really, really hard. i.e., I'm a father, right? Not because we don't do these things, but because the dispossession of black children happens like that. Before we have our kids, they're not ours. There are propositions to the state. Shout out to the test scores. That's what dictates where we move or where we can't move, right? Or the relationship you share with police because you're afraid that your little black kid might be harassed by them by any means. That kind of relationship is one that scares every black parent. I don't care how much money you make or where you live at. I don't care how much education you have. You could be like Dartmouth legacy babies. My work gets at what does it mean to be able to raise those kids in this anti-black world and still be a whole parent. Right? Because the dispossession is not at the level of the child, because everybody can have little nigger kids. Right? But it's how to actually imagine and leave space for those black parents. And this is why my paper takes on a particular two-tone trope, which is a question of improper reproduction, which is a pulling from Alexis Gumbs and her use of it to talk about how black feminists oftentimes improperly reproduce themselves and the things that they like and love to provide possibilities for black people like them, whether it be black women or black men and black other spaces like writ large. And so for me, it's a question of being able to access that. The reason why this is drastically important is because I also think that black parenting can be improperly reproduced, right? For the sake of the little nigger kids, right? If little black kids can never be little black kids, but they always suspect of bad, fast, and or prone to corrective violence, if those are the conditions of little black kids to be little nigger kids, then the thing that we can do to engage with them fully as black parents, as ones who are considering raising and rearing black children, the thing that we can consider is not only just improperly reproducing our parenting models, right? This is not just to say that I'm a different shade of gray to gentle parenting, for example, but to take onus and stock of what current parenting models do work, that we do have, right? Giving honor and praise to a lot of parenting methods that are shunned in a lot of ways because they're not the typical ones that everyone has access to, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is my paper takes on a very literary kind of play on words to be able to give credence to the livability that is in between the expectations or the expected possibilities of black life, right? And so, for example, one of my favorite battle rappers, Sue Surf, takes up this concept of saying things in subtitles. He was like, do I gotta say it in subtitles or something? Right? And he'll say a whole phrase, like, for example, impossibility. You be like, that's a word, right? Cool. If I said it in the subtitles, like Sue Surf says, it'll be I am possible whenever I am possible. Right? I add the extra things because the word impossibility to this nigga life is one that is relative. Right? In other work, I talk about this concept of niggatry, which is niggas proposing and assuming and staying imminent with their own possibilities. I take that same kind of concept and work it through black parenting to presuppose that black parenting could be a little bit niggerish too, right? And niggerig, what does that look like? Because for me, the consequences is, and shout out to Calvin Warren, who wrote a piece about onticide that talks about when black parents are then subscribing to the world's desires and conditions of them, right? What are those demands to be a good black parent? They'll do things like autocorrect their kid, and it's living. So whole time your kid is now a gay nigga, right? And you're carving that on the skull of that same kid that was supposed to be yours that you liked and loved, and you killed it because you liked and loved it. Marvin Gaye's father said the same thing when he said, yes, I brought you into this world and I'll take you out. That commonality within black homes is one that allows us the audacity and the chance to shape what those things look like. Instead of being like generations to be like, all right, look, I brought you into this world. I did. How about we figure it out at the end of it? How about we negotiate, kid, about how this world works for you and me? Because the cost in doing business in this world while being black is a lot. We might not get to see a jail cell. We might not get to see, ask Freddie Gray and his mama about those things. Sure, you can ask Sandra Blake. We can run the gambit about black parents having to bury their children. What do you do in between when you're grieving that you might be able to do that today or tomorrow? Right? My paper gives suggestions about that kind of possible nature that could not only give ground that is generative for black parents who have little nigger kids, but also generative to them same little nigger kids who would complain in a lot of ways that their parents can't love them. And not because they don't want to, but because it's impossible. Jay-Z says it takes a week. I think that's kind of relative. Time is kind of relative. So it's to say that within, black life, when staring down the barrel of what can niggas do, I say I dare you. I dare you to care with audacity. I dare you to give the same kind of life and love that you want to. Naim Akbar says that black life is miracles. Right. My favorite, and I'll end on this, right? Like one of my favorite movies and pastimes is the Whitney Houston Cinderella story, where she begins, it's possible, right? Like she goes in this whole little thing about possibility. And for me, thinking about what is impossible has to be relative to ones who choose to live and have the space to make that choice. Because when you choose to bring a child into this world, when you choose to be like, hey, child, I'm going to teach that you're black, and I'm not going to whisper about those conversations. When you choose to be like, hey, I know I ain't birthed you, but you're still my kid, and I am caring about what your black life look like. Those things is what we should hold on to that gives us the audacity to create moments for nearby futures that are for and of those little black kids that we give a fuck about, of the potential Bebe's kids. Because whole time, Bebe didn't exist in my life. My mom's name is Dina. They called her Dina's kids. They don't have to be Bebe's kids no more. They can just be Dina's kids, right? And so if that's true, then what do we do for Dina's kids? Do we scoff? Do we call them bad, fast, and killable? Misdemeanor homicides? Or we dare, without them even being by our side, risk it all for futures that are supposed to be for them. And I say take the risk, people. All right, Fanon says take a leap. I say, yup, keep leaping. Leap from one moment to the next. And I thank you.
Okay, great, wonderful. I was gonna check my phone for my own name, but I was like, I think I know that one. So I got that part. So again, hello everyone. I'm Darian Carroll. Thank you so much for coming out.